Well, good morning, everyone. Bob Madison here with the Minnesota State High School League and the LEAD Network. And congratulations on allowing our fall sport athletes to get off to a great start, both with practice and outstanding seeing competition taking place this week. And we can't compliment you enough on the work that you're doing, all the precautions that you're taking around where we're at with COVID-19. So again, thank you for your work. And you know, it feels like sometimes we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. We recognize places that we've been around COVID, and now I recognize a place where we've been around social unrest again. And as you're entering competitions, I think this is a great opportunity to have conversations with your student athletes, your coaches, on where we're at and how they're feeling and how we react to situations that we're in or situations that are very close to us. We want to continue to monitor your needs. What can we continue to do assist as we get into competitions and to facilitate your needs and questions around that. So we have a full day here again today, and if we could move into the agenda, Laura, you're going to notice an agenda that really is focused on questions that we've received from you, right? Either through liaisons or themes that are occurring throughout the week. We want to make sure that our agenda is full of information that's going to assist you between now and the next time that we meet. So just to review a little bit, where this LEAD meeting is going to operate a little bit differently today. If we could go to that next slide, please, Laura. You're going to notice that our chat is going to operate a little bit different. Our host today is Laura. The chat is going to go back to Laura. She'll be able to see things, and as themes occur and as they arise around the topics, we will get to those. This has been a request that has come to us from many of you actually, that let's focus on the topics that are at hand. Let's minimize commentary around them, and let's not review things that we've already discussed or things that are already out there on the FAQs, so on and so forth. We will continue to capture the information from the chat and get those out to you again on Mondays through the FAQs. When you receive the invite for LEAD, you're also going to notice that there will be an agenda. So you'll see what the topics are. If there are things that maybe you have questions around, there's an opportunity to enter that as well at that time. And Laura, when you go through the progression, maybe that's something that you could share with them what that looks like, if that's okay. So in our liaison meeting, we did discuss on Tuesday as well as where we're at with our meetings, and we asked them to tell us, do we continue to meet and have a meeting next week? And what they said is, yes, we need to continue to meet. We're going to meet next week heading into Labor Day weekend. And then we're going to give you a week away from LEAD following Labor Day. Many of you are just beginning school. I know many of you are also in school, but we'll take that following week a week away, and we'll keep you up to date on what that LEAD network schedule is like. And again, continue to answer your questions as they come up. Again, if we could go back to anything I missed there on the schedule, Laura?
Oh, I think we're good to go, Bob.
All right, then I'm gonna turn it over to Laura to talk a little bit more about the progression as to and where we're at and where we're going.
So good morning, everyone. This should become a slide and a list that you've seen before and continues to grow. We added 1 check mark. The adapted soccer information came out to you yesterday. There was an update that came out mid-afternoon yesterday that was actually full of a lot of information. It had the adapted soccer and also some revisions on other pieces. You see in this list the next things that are being developed. The next things you'll start to see early next week are fall training season guidance around the spring sports that have the opportunity to practice in October. Another item that's been added, you see in italics, we're working on a COVID-interrupted competition guidelines document, things that would come into play if a team is not able to play due to COVID. And that, again, you should see as soon as possible. The goal then is also to get Category 2 information out to you prior to Labor Day. That would include mostly fine arts activities. And then after Labor Day, the progression that you see, working through postseason, which we'll talk more about later, as well as the tentative calendar. A reminder that our goal is to get these out to you to hit your inbox in your email but these are also cataloged for you to easily be able to go back and find. On your AD dashboard, there's a link that says Sports Guidance and Information, COVID-related resources, and it's over on the right-hand side. If you click on that link, you'll find all of these documents in one place. And again, that's Sports Guidance and Information, COVID-related. Ended up with a long name because it seemed to tie to a lot of things, and we wanted to try to capture the different things you might call it. The individual documents are also showing up on the individual sport banners. So for example, the volleyball training season guidance is under the volleyball banner on your page as well as your coach's page. So that AD dashboard is your place to look for things, and coaches who have specific activities that they're coaching, those are also on their dashboards underneath their sports banner. With that, Bob, I will turn it back to you for anything that I might have missed or moving forward.
Yeah, no, I think, it's a great example of the COVID interrupted competition. So we see things from other states, we hear from you, and our progression will be a working document. So as things come up, we'll add to that in terms of what we're trying to get. Staff met this morning around the spring training that's going to take place within the fall seasons here to make sure that we're consistent with that language that we're sending out to you. And another thing that was mentioned there was around adapted soccer. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric to talk about conversations he's had around adapted soccer.
Thanks much, Bob, and good morning, everyone. Thanks again for all your work. Appreciate it. Want to keep things moving. The MSHSL board met on Monday. I had a great opportunity to meet with them for about an hour. These folks are really focused on their students and their activities, just like every one of our populations are. That group did a great job of identifying, some of the unique factors that might affect their particular students and their sport and how it works best. In the end, taking a look at all of the factors, that group came forward with a unanimous recommendation to replace the interscholastic competitive season for adapted soccer with a soccer training season. So important to recognize the fact that this is not a postponement of a season. This is a replacement of a season. The students that participate in our adapted programs oftentimes are in a number of different adapted programs throughout the year. They recognize that these are really connected directly to the school year, and they want to be able to maintain that and keep that in the right space for them. You'll notice as you look at it, the start date is identified as September 21st and running through October 24th. And within that, they're looking for an opportunity to have up to 8 practices. Remember that many of our adapted programs have rather large co-ops. And so we know that transportation can be a challenge. And so the number of training seasons is identified really per participant. And so if a coach wants to work with a group of students in one school on one day and then the next day go to another school and work with them at their school, they can absolutely do that. That would only count as 1 for each of those students that participate. So a coach might have more than 8 contacts with team members, but any one site or any one group of students really should max out at 8. And again, the group did a great job with that. It is their season. They recognize that these students want to participate and that they're just as excited as everyone else to have those opportunities. Right now it is a tentative, but we feel really good about that. It will eventually go before a board committee to be approved. That will likely take place before we even get to September 21st, but this allows you to begin planning and working with those coaches and those programs within your schools. So Bob, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Eric. And with our focus on fall sports, we have to remember our priorities around our adapted athletes and adapted athletics, along with our fine arts too. So as that information comes to us, just know that we continue to work on it and get that to you as soon as we possibly can. One of the questions that was identified with our liaisons, and I think staff has received as well, continues to revolve around distance learning, or the learning model that we're in. And Susie, if we could go to that slide, please. Again, when we see a theme or a pattern of questions, we want to make sure that we're trying to help you interpret what that looks like. So quite often you have heard me use the term mandatory distance learning, either in an email or on our lead meetings. The correct language from the MDE is required distance learning, right? Required distance learning occurs when your county metrics are at a place that that's your only option for your secondary school or your high school. When you're in that required distance learning, that there is no in-person activity, participation, competition that takes place, you would only be in virtual mode. When you have a district choice to go to distance learning, and I think some of the questions are coming from, we have a number of schools, even a week ago, that might have been in a hybrid, that are now in a district choice distance learning, that in-person participation continues to be allowed along with competition. Then you get the required district choice in terms of hybrid or in-person. Again, that's another option for your districts to allow in-person competition and or practice to occur. It gets a little bit trickier when you have a co-op. So if there is a co-op and members of that co-op are in district choice, distance learning and or hybrid learning, they can continue to participate. But if a member school that is within the co-op is required to be in distance learning, so school B is in required distance learning, members or student athletes from that school that are in required distance learning are not an option to participate or compete as a part of that co-op. So again, we're going to continue to try and educate on this and use common language that'll assist you around those questions that you may get from parents. The other thing that goes along with that is that student athletes individually or their parents or families may choose distance learning in a hybrid setting. Those athletes or the members of that family would still be eligible as well. If we could go back to our slideshow, please. I think we are going to talk about COVID, when it occurs in your buildings and within our programs and what that might look like around collecting that information. Eric?
Thanks, Bob. As we think about where we are with things and what we want to do within our programs and how we monitor that, our goal is to create a data collection from our member schools around what happens within our programs. The goal of this is to pull school data, no student specific data. That's not our business and that's not what we're interested in. And the goal is to get aggregate data, and that is compiled data, and have a look at that as we go forward in terms of within the first few weeks, what's it look like? How does it look as we go forward? And having you respond back to us to identify when you've had teams and or competitions that have been interrupted or have had to be postponed due to COVID outbreaks and or close contacts, whatever those things might be. Again, the purpose of this plan to collect the data would be so that we can monitor the implementation of our seasons. We've seen things be really, really good so far. Great practices that are taking place within your schools and within your programs. We want to understand the impact from a Minnesota perspective on what it means for our sports and activities. How does it impact our schools? What does it look like from a number of students that could be impacted? We know that that's kind of by school, so to speak, but is it going to be a partial or an entire program type of impact? And then as we make future decisions, it's going to be important that we have this data to say, we can look at the fall season and we can use actual data from our schools and the way that they've implemented their programming, use some MDE data alongside to say, here's what schools were required to be in or not required to be in from a learning model, and then use that as we go forward. So we are fine tuning that. Obviously, we always learn from other states in ways that they're doing that. But we're really going to be asking for your assistance in providing that information. The goal is that is a 5-minute a week or a 5-minute every 2 weeks method of being able to provide that information back to us so that we can have that. We can use it with our return to participation conversations. We can use it with our board of directors as more decisions need to be made going through what looks to be an awful busy year. With a lot of unknowns and again, uncertainties, but this will provide data that will be important for us. So look for that information coming out to you likely early next week as well.
Good, thank you, Eric. And we're going to head back into topics that liaisons have identified or we've received as a staff here too. And one of those continues to be eligibility. Obviously, with my increased role within eligibility, and Susie's doing an amazing job. What we continue to try and do is get information back to you around questions around eligibility within 24 to 48 hours. It gets a little bit trickier when we may head into a review. That would be a typical cycle where we're looking at items on a regular basis, but not within 24 to 48 hours. Just know this and remember this. This is a topic that we continue to discuss with the eligibility committee. COVID-19 and or the pandemic that we're currently in is not exceptional. So any of our current transfer language, right? All of you are in a very similar or the same situation. So nothing has changed around choices that family make on their education. So if school A is offering distance learning, but school B offers in-person learning, would there be an exception made for me to go from one scenario to the next? At this time, no. Again, that would be family choice, or you're looking for an educational model that you don't have or a learning option. There have been no exceptions to that, and we're following consistent policies and bylaws around eligibility. Again, another popular topic here. Susie, if we could go to open gyms and or captain's practices. As we discussed this with our liaisons this week, should we have captain's practices and or open gyms moving forward? And we asked our liaisons this, what do you think moving forward? We said no for the fall. We haven't said no yet for the winter or spring seasons. It was 50-50. No open gyms, no captain's practices, or make that local control. So we have not decided that yet. We continue to be concerned about supervision in these environments, what pods look like. Are they following MDE or MDH guidelines within these different settings? And what does the controlled environment look like? We know that controlled environments, supervision, following MDE, MDH guidelines is going to assist us in allowing us success for future seasons, right? So we have to find a balance, and we have not decided moving forward what open gyms and or captain's practices look like. If someone asks me that, my recommendation is that, to err on the side of safety. Make sure that student athletes are in a safe environment, and if you don't have to have them or can regulate that, that will always be a recommendation. But I don't think our answers are that simple when it comes to those two categories. So when that decision has been made, we'll let you know on that and get that information out to you. Another one happens to be where we're going the rest of the year, starting with our postseasons. That was identified again as really our next priority and what that looks like. We have said in the past that we want to see how the season begins and maybe get back into school to see what our learning looks like. We feel like that we have to expedite that. We feel like we may have to do that and have those, enter into those discussions sooner and make those plans when it comes to facilities or calendars, things like that. We know that that is a priority. Our return to participation task force, which is made up of liaisons and our eligibility committee and then others. We're also going to add a couple of region secretaries to that. Their first meeting will be next Wednesday. So we're going to get started. We'll be meeting weekly. We have to make decisions and give our board the right information and options for their October 1st board meeting to make these determinations. Postseasons will need to take place prior to that, obviously. We'll continue to work with the task force, and then a board or board committee, something like the executive committee, will have to make that decision on how we're moving forward with postseason and what that looks like. Yet we know there are still some unknowns that are out there as we get into our competition. The rest is really I'm going to call it a projected calendar, right? What does the rest of our year look like? Obviously, following our fall tournament season, right away we're into that winter season, starting with dance and choreography and so on and so forth. So the task of our task force is again to make recommendations, create options. I hope we have more time than we did this last time to gather that information and to make sure that we're making educated options available for our winter sports and really creating a schematic of a season or a calendar for our spring season, call it spring season A or spring season B, and what sports exist within those. Those are all going to be items that will continue to need to be done through the return participation task force. Jill Johnson will continue to be our chair on that. So thank you for your work on that, Jill. And then I would also say thank you to the task force for their work in going on and communicating with member schools around them through our liaisons, through AD advisory, through our regions, so on and so forth. We continue to be impressed by the conferences and or sections that meet following these meetings. You know, to hear and say, what is it that you heard today, or what did Bob or Eric or Jody or Lisa mean by this? And again, within chat today, we're hoping that you're still asking questions, right? The intent of the chat going back to our host today is to focus on the topics that are at hand, but to continue to hear the questions that you have. So questions that are entered into chat today, if you would continue to do that, those will be recorded. Those will be grabbed out of the chat. Somebody on our staff will work on those questions and get those back out to you sometime on Monday. We've heard that that is a resource that you like and you look forward to. And we will continue to post those, I believe, on the microsite as well. So that is it for our topics here today. At this time, though, I'm going to turn it over to Eric to finish us up.
Bob, could I sneak in for just a minute?
Absolutely.
I'm seeing several questions in the chat. Just asking for a little more clarification on timeline for postseason, and also where people can best provide some input and feedback on ideas for postseason for individual specific activities.
Yeah, I think those are great questions. And again, obviously postseason needs to happen sooner than later, right? So I think our task force, that's something we will talk about again next week. I think information that can come either, you know, through individuals or to your liaisons, ideally, if there are options out there that you're hearing, seeing, and let's not forget about what we know, right? Regional feels like it is a better option to us, and we've been told that, right? That's a better option to compete regionally. So I think the idea of a postseason looking like it did last year is not going to be an option, right? In terms of facilities and or gatherings of people, what crowds look like, spectators, all of those things. So again, bring forward opportunities or maybe proposals that are out there. We're hearing of them. We hear them through our liaisons. Again, advisory is working on some different things with those sports. Know that staff here responsible for those sports is also working advisory. So I think a multitude of ways that those can come to us and through us. Eric, anything I missed on that on the timeline?
Nope, I think you got right on that, Bob, and appreciate that information. Obviously, we want to be working on that as quickly as possible and put those together, but at the same time, make sure that we use at least even some initial information from how our seasons get started to help and inform what a postseason can look like as we go forward. So I think that that's all got to fit together, and timing is important. Our region secretaries tell us that venues as well are critical in terms of being able to reserve those and have access to them. So just a lot of moving parts, especially as we're creating it as we go forward. So I know that it's difficult. It's hard to have patience because you're a group of folks who want to put plans in place and then be able to exercise those plans. So certainly understand that desire.
I hear that our chat is active around opinions around open gym and or captain's practices, so we appreciate that. And some, it sounds like, are even bolded or in caps. So Eric, at that point, I think we're done with our topics for today. I'm going to turn it over to you to finish our lead network meeting here for today.
Thanks, Bob. And again, thanks to everyone who's been a part of these calls and is on the call here today. This is meeting number 20. If you would have told us back on April 9th when we started that this was what this was going to turn into, this wasn't necessarily the vision. It was a decision to try and do something that could better connect us with every one of our schools and get your input and provide information, perhaps be more efficient, but also be on target with what we're talking about. You've done amazing work. And every school administrator out there is working really hard to put things together. But there are not any other administrators that are so reliant on one another for things to work. As a high school principal, I didn't have to have the neighbor across the district line that had to do the same thing as I did or had to be on the same calendar as I was. But you all have to work together. And it is difficult work. It's especially difficult when you don't know things or you don't have clear guidance. And so it's been our goal. I would just continue to recommend that you work together. Stay connected with those around you. Lean on them. I know a lot of you go into other group meetings, be it conferences or subsections or things like that, somewhere following these lead meetings to be able to identify, okay, so what did you hear and where do we go? That's critical and that's important. One thing that I want you to know is the work that you do is very, very important to us, but more so it's important to our students and our programs. And here's why. As a league, we've got an obligation to do the two things that we said we were going to do from the very beginning. And those are, one, to try and provide an opportunity in every activity that we have in some way, and do it in the safest possible way. If we can see and we can demonstrate that what we're doing and what we're offering to our students is happening well, and it's keeping kids safe while they're engaging in the passions and the energy that they have around their activities, we're going to be able to do more. And so thinking about that as the end goal of how do we continue to grow this? And when we do things well as an organization, we're able to advocate to a greater degree for more opportunities, for being able to get back to some of the aspects that we want this to be eventually. And so I just want to make sure that you know that we recognize all the extra work that you're putting in, how thoughtful you are. I know from my experience, and you're getting the same, that you've got people that want everything opened up and you've got people that want everything closed down and everything in between. And balancing that is really key and a challenge. What I always talk about is it's trying to thread that needle. Where is the right place for us to be organizationally? Where is the right place for you to be as an organization? But you are a critical part of what we do at your local level, in your conference, in your section, in your region. So first and foremost, make sure that you know we appreciate all that you're doing, the communication you provide. All of you that are providing leadership within your areas make a huge difference. Our lead liaisons are just one example. The amount of contact that they have with group ADs is significant, and we get a collective kind of approach and opinion that comes, as opposed to all kinds of things all over the place. It's also a place where consensus can be built and then can help inform us as we continue to go forward. So in trying to stay on the timeline and be where we are, I want to say thanks again for all the work that you're doing. Know that there are competitions in sports that haven't played yet starting today. It's an exciting time. It's what we all dream of having for our students, is that opportunity to take their practice and their training and be able to try it out on the court or on the field or on the track or on a cross-country course, whatever it might be, in the pool. And you are a critical aspect to that being able to happen. So thanks again. Hope you have a great day. If there's any last thoughts or questions that you have that you want to enter the chat, I know that we'll leave that open for a little while. But with that, hope that your Thursday is fantastic. Bob, any last comments?
No, nothing here. Great job, Eric. And I like the idea of more, right? Let's continue to do the job that we're doing, and hopefully we'll get a little break in the heat, although dealing with heat indexes feels rather normal. So again, great job out there. Laura, anything we're seeing in the chat that we should address right now?
No, just a reminder, we had some people jump in a little bit late who are wondering why the chat looks different. So Bob, if you want to just, as people are exiting, those people who jumped in late might want to hear that one more time from you.
Yeah, again, to focus on the meeting to be effective and efficient, the chat went directly to the host today. So questions that were within that, we'll continue to gather those, get those out in the FAQs to you on Monday, if we haven't already taken care of those today. Otherwise, have a great day and great finish to your week. Again, thank you for your work.